Well, hello there and welcome to Watchbox Reviews and Watches Live. We're back with Watches Live 13. Tonight is all about calendar watches. Now, I find that for me, the calendar is pretty much the perfect everyday complication. It has ooh and ah factor when you're showing your friends, trying to bring them into the watch world, when writing letters, dating correspondence, memos, emails. I find I refer to watches for dates when I don't have them. And when I have dates, I look for complete calendars. And the madness starts there. It never ends. We've got the full range of calendar watches on the table tonight, from simple triple calendars to sidereal time and celestial calendars. We run the gamut. 14 pieces on the table tonight. Price ranges from just under $7,000 to just over $500,000. And I'm happy to say some of them are compound complications, so you're not just getting calendars on the table tonight. We will be showcasing all. Eddie Landsberg joining in, Tom P., Edward Ledden from Sweden, Fjord Prefect, Andrew Holt, and Fabi Schwartz. Welcome, guys. Okay, so on Watches Live, it's kind of give and take. You take away memories, and I give you stuff. So I have silk ties from our Patek Philippe event, handmade, beautiful, comfortable, rich, and lustrous. I have hats from some of our favorite brands, and I have a world of viewers to whom these will be given. What you have to do, though, is you have to send me your name, your mailing address, and your phone number to tim@thewatchbox.com, and then I will draw winners during the broadcast. It's that simple. If you've already won, you're already entered, and you can win again. If you've already entered, you're already entered, and you're going to be in the drawing tonight. So if you've already entered, no need to flood my inbox again. You're in the draw. Okay, friends joining us from around the world, I can see Sebastian P., Ross Franey, Hayden, Matt Foster, Matthias. Welcome, guys. Let's start with a watch that's near and dear to my heart because it was one of the watches that actually got me into watches in the mid-2000s. The latest in a long line, as of 2005, of Jaeger LeCoultre calendar watches. This was the Master Calendar, 40mm caliber 924. Now, this watch combined two different threads of JLC history into a single case. You have the Power Reserve automatic, and JLC has had one pretty much continuously in the catalog since the late 1940s, caliber 481 Powermatic. But they've also had a calendar wristwatch in the catalog pretty much continuously once again, this time since about the 1930s when they first released the caliber 412, which was a day and a date. Now you can see that this watch features a power reserve for 43 hours at 12 o'clock, moon phase at 6 o'clock with constant seconds, and then an aperture day, aperture month, and a radial date. I love this watch. This is a timepiece that's nice and slim, just over 13. It's not as thick as it looks. 48mm lug to lug and 40 across the case. This is the kind of value-priced complication that I wish Jaeger LeCoultre still did today. They were brave enough to design a watch face that they hadn't done before, to pack it with value, and to make it accessibly priced. And at under $8,000 today, this is a watch that you can put on your wrist, immediately have a brand with pedigree and history, and a good deal of that history packed into this case. You can see it's a modern architecture, as this is JLC's 924 auto-tractorized unidirectional winding with ceramic rotor bearings and the free-sprung balance. This is, as they say, the post-auto tractor movement. More accurate, more precise, lower maintenance, and tougher. You're getting all of that with the Master 1000 Hours, complete cased-up watch standard of chronometry testing. Okay, so friends who are joining us, I can see Boet's joining us, I believe, from Belgium. Joshua Polanski, watch lover in Hawaii, one guess where he's from. And of course, I can see our friends continue to pour in from around the world. If you got up early, if you stayed up late, thank you. Remember, send me your name, your mailing address, and your phone number to tim@thewatchbox, and I'm going to pick you to win some cool stuff. In fact, why don't we get out of the gate with a winner? This would be a great way to start. This would be an awesome way. Okay, I can see bum 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 bum. Okay, George G., congratulations, you are our first winner of the night. Not far from my old haunt in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. You guys are warm while I'm freezing, and you're going to be well dressed with this beautiful silk hand-stitched Patek Philippe tie. It's gorgeous, it's lustrous, it's got alternating satin and metallic finish, just like a watch. This thing is nuanced, beautiful, richly detailed, and handmade. Congratulations, you're going to be strapped for success, Windsor knot style, for your next red bar. All right, guys, remember, your name, your phone number, and your mailing address, tim@thewatchbox.com, and you could win what's still on the table tonight. But back to the watches. So I mentioned that I came into the watch hobby for JLC in the mid-2000s, and I couldn't really afford a high-end watch back then. I was basically, you know, a kid just out of college. This was even before my Navy days. And I was looking at watches that intrigued me because they were either inside baseball and thus undervalued because people didn't know what they were, or they were from brands that hadn't yet become fashionista focal points. And one of them back in the day was actually Zenith. Now, right here you have the Zenith Pilot Type 20, 48 millimeters. This is a big watch, no two ways about it, but let me actually unscrew this absolutely colossal pilot style crown. And this is one of the brands that really intrigued me, partly because it was a lot like JLC, a true manufacturer that was making everything in-house because it could, because that's always how the company had been organized, in Zenith's case since 1865. A company that gave you a lot of value for your money. And nowhere is that more evident than in the El Primero family, specifically this El Primero 4054 caliber. Now you can see on the back the Blériot monoplane in which Louis Blériot crossed the English Channel. Emblematic of Zenith's pilot line, but what really matters with this watch is what's inside that case. Now, the annual calendar that's inside this watch only needs to be adjusted once a year, the jump from February to March, and it only has 9 parts on top of the basic El Primero. Now, I may as well get this one fired up and running because, after all, part of the romance of the watch is the compound complication. The El Primero 10 beats per second, now with a Ludwig Oxlin designed annual calendar. So what that means essentially is that the man who was behind the Ulysse Nardin trilogy of time, who was the godfather of the freak, the man who was behind watches like the GMT Plus Minus Perpetual and the Perpetual Ludwig, worked his magic for Zenith to put his annual calendar system that uses only wheels on top of an El Primero automatic high-beat chronograph. Now, the great thing about this watch is it is an everyday watch. A lot of compound complications are touchy, finicky, high maintenance. Not this one. This watch even boasts 100-meter water resistance, so if you are a seaplane pilot, this one will have you in good stead. It's hefty, it's chunky, nevertheless, it's easy to wear, 48 millimeters, but very compact in that the lugs bend almost straight down and barely project beyond the case. This is a fun watch to wear. Is it your only watch? Probably not. But then again, at under $7,000, what an alternative to an IWC Big Pilot, whether the annual or the perpetual, and you get the chronograph to boot. This is just a fun watch. Friends joining in, we could see from around the world and into our chat box. Guys, if you're using a computer where you have the live chat box, join me and I'll answer your questions in real time because this is an interactive show. Why else do live? It's Watches Live. Watches, but also live. Okay, I can see that Cam is joining. Mike K, sorry I'm late. You're not late. And of course, High and Rising, having a month display on a watch is a nuisance if the watch is not at least an annual calendar. And I can see Joshua Polanski asking, what type of numerals are those? Well, I would actually have to say, first of all, they're stylized Arabics in a fashion that was characteristic of first quarter of the 20th century pilots' timepieces. But what I really want to emphasize is that here they are cut in solid blocks of luminova. So they actually project above the dial and they're not printed on. They're actually appliques made of luminova. And you can see with those gorgeous cathedral-style hands at center, this dial is like a lighthouse at night. It absolutely burns. A pleasure in the day, a pleasure at night, equally legible in both. That's the Zenith Pilot Type 20, the Montre d'Aéronef annual calendar chronograph with an El Primero heart and the face of a vintage aviator's timepiece. Okay, so here we go from Jaeger LeCoultre to Zenith. We mentioned IWC, so we may as well give them a fighting chance to make their value case. I gave them a little bit of a bad mouth there, saying that this Zenith is a value proposition over and above a Portuguese or a Pilot Perpetual or Annual from IWC. But let me show you an IWC that can go toe-to-toe with any sports watch from any brand. This is a cult classic right here. This is the 2001 to 2002 GST Perpetual Calendar Chronograph, stainless steel with the salmon dial. Now, while this model was made from 2001 to 2004. The copper-accented salmon dial, which is a rich and lustrous metallic red, was only made from 2001 to about halfway through 2002. Now, the watch is part of the GST family that ran from 1998 to about 2006. GST meaning gold, steel, and titanium. It was made in all three metals, this being one of the most complicated examples with the chronograph and the perpetual calendar. Also, the rarest example of the steel perpetual calendar chronograph. Now, I said this is a cult watch for a number of reasons, one of which is the gorgeous Aventurine moon phase. It's a beautiful, lustrous night sky, sort of quartz with minerals that are in the material itself and then cut and polished to form the moon phase disc. It is absolutely singular, and it's what you would have seen on the Da Vinci Perpetuals. Now, this is the Kurt Claus Perpetual Calendar module, which means it's as easy as adjusting a three-hand date Rolex. If you can adjust a date, you can adjust this. Mechanically programmed through the year 2100, everything moves in sync, which is why there are no pusher adjusters on the flank of the case to mar the watch. Adjust everything through the crown. The watch even has a fun and rugged caliber 79-261 automatic based on a Valjoux 7750, IWC's hot rod modifications to the base caliber, plus a coordinated perpetual calendar module made entirely in Schaffhausen. The watch is 43 millimeters, and as you can see, this is old school International Watch Company watchmaking. This is not really of the Georges Kern era. He arrived only a few months after this watch went on sale, so it's not really his style. The man who's remaking Breitling was not a father of this timepiece, and you can see it's more connected aesthetically to the IWC watches of the 80s and 90s than of the 2000s and 2010s. Now, I'll also say that the watch features a bracelet that is beautiful and substantial, and I have to say, in style and finish, this doesn't remind me of Breitling, Omega, or Rolex. This reminds me of the Patek Philippe Nautilus. It's not quite finished to that standard, but it is darn close. Beautiful polished flanks, satin primary links, polished and tapered central intermediate links. You can see the dimples on the underside. This is a feature that debuted with the GSTs. Each individual link is removable for ultra-precise sizing, as well as exceptionally deep cleaning. It's an ergonomic joy on the wrist, and you can get a very, very precise fit. The attention to detail is superb, too. The low-profile clasp has a gorgeous engine turning on the inside, and it arcs so that it curves around the wrist. You can see how the clasp body itself is actually curved for comfort. This is a wonderful piece, water-resistant to 120 meters, that I will put toe-to-toe with any Zenith complex calendar El Primero. That is a special, memorable, and rare watch. So right here, Sebastian P. is saying, yeah, Patek Philippe Nautilus band, he's seen it. But remember, this watch uses a unique sizing system such that you can disassemble it using nothing but a toothpick. It's beautifully made, intricately machined, and expensive. It's not the pins and sleeves system that Patek has been using on the Nautilus since 2012. You don't have to ask me which I prefer. All right, so from complex calendars of the gold, steel, and titanium variety with IWC's GST stainless steel perpetual calendar chronograph in copper dial, we go to another complex calendar sports watch, a little bit more upscale. Now we're talking something that's truly a price and stature equivalent, if not precisely of Patek, certainly an aspirant to that status, with finishing to match and a level of polish and panache that not even every Nautilus is going to match. This is one of the watches that really got me into the Blancpain brand. Now, I love what they do with the Le Mans and Villeray lines, but the 50 Fathoms is Blancpain, and in 2010 we first saw this watch. This is the 50 Fathoms reference 5066. This is a rich dessert indeed. Start with the fact that it was a complete calendar with a flyback chronograph, so you have flyback reset restart functionality, automatic winding, vertical clutch with a column wheel, a complete calendar of moon phase, and a unique system of pusher adjusters. Let me show you how this works, because Blancpain brought this out in the late 2000s, and everyone should be doing something like this for their calendar adjusters. Look at the flank of the case. No dimple adjusters, no through fittings, nothing to mar the lines of the case, and it is a comely case. Instead, you can see beautifully secure and discreet underneath At every lug, there is a pusher adjuster that you can use to toggle the calendar. Day, date, month, and moon phase, all of it's done with these adjusters, and they have a blocker mechanism so you can't accidentally actuate the calendar during the danger zone when it's changing over the calendar. So they eliminate the need for a pusher tool, they clean up the flank of the case, and they prevent you from damaging your watch by activating the calendar during the danger zone. So here's the thing. Let me show you how this works because it's absolutely brilliant. You check the dial of the watch, and I actuate the calendar, and just like that, I toggle the radial date. I don't need a pusher tool, I don't need to play with a pen, I don't need to risk my skills with a pin tool. Absolutely simple, it's exemplary, it's what everyone should be using. And you still get that gorgeous 50 fathom cambered sapphire over a rich blue and fully luminescent bezel. It feels good, it sounds good, it looks good, and the dial is a spectacular rose lathe guilloche at center with a metallic hour track, white gold hands, white gold indices, and numeral at 12 o'clock. This is a watch that's still 300 meters water resistant, that features what's known as, well, they call it a caliber 66, but what it really is an adapted Frédéric Piguet 1185. Note the black polished Nautilus style winder. Column wheel architecture with a vertical clutch. We're not quite Geneva hallmark finish, but we're getting far, far better than machine finished here. This is a hand executed movement in a dive watch. It comes with a wonderful sailcloth strap with a rubber underlay so it's soft against the skin, and not every 50 Fathoms gives you this full deployment. This one, again, way upscale, over $20,000 new, under $19,000 now. That is a great option if you want something that is finished to an haute de gamme standard that gives you a lot of value, but unlike a Nautilus, unlike a Royal Oak, is not selling above retail on the secondary markets. JBO Surf saying, this is a man's watch. It is. And let me show you this watch's magic trick, because 45 millimeters, a lot of people are going to write it off, and they shouldn't. The watch is just over 50 millimeters lug to lug, and if I were to strap this down on my wrist, my spindly 16 centimeter wrist, you can see because it's narrow, it's a big watch, but it's small lug to lug. It doesn't even protrude beyond the edges of my wrist. So you could wear this on a smaller wrist than mine. 15 centimeters, 14 and a half, you're still wearing this watch and you're looking good. This is a handsome, fun, upscale piece. If you like hand finish, if you like complication, if you love the history of the 50 Fathoms, but you want more than just a diver, boom. All of that in a single reference. In stainless steel, this is everyday friendly. Okay, so Marco was saying Caitlyn Jenner could not pull that off. I beg to differ. It's quite easy to pull this off your wrist because it has a handsome double deployant clasp with trigger actuation. Or do you mean Caitlyn Jenner doesn't pack the style and panache to pull this off? I'm going to go with the latter. This is a very comfortable, user-friendly piece, and from a brand that's owned by the Swatch Group and therefore able to service and around forever. Okay, so comment from Sebastian, looks great, and it'll look great on a smaller wrist than mine. That's the magic of the 50 Fathoms. Okay, now, I do want to call out a watch that I've got on the table that was a bit of a pioneer and often overlooked, and that's the Ulysse Nardin GMT plus minus Perpetual. And why? Well, it's because this is a watch designed by Ludwig Axelin during his days at Ulysse Nardin. I mentioned that he designed the annual calendar in this Zenith. Well, he also designed a perpetual calendar system for Ulysse Nardin. Let's go to the Ulysse right now. That could be set in both directions. Now, here's the magic. This watch can be set in either direction with respect to the date. Most perpetual calendar systems cannot be set backwards and forwards and are not what they call year 2100 compliant, which is to say, in the year 2100, that IWC that I showed you is going to have to go back to the factory to be adjusted. Here, no such problem. Now you can see all of the adjustments to this watch are done using either the GMT plus minus adjusters or the crown, and I'm jumping back and forth just like it's no thing. Normally this would break a perpetual calendar, but this watch gives you more. Not just a perpetual calendar, there's a reason it's called the GMT plus minus, and that's because the GMT plus minus pushers on the flanks make this the ultimate user-friendly travel watch as well. So you've got a dual time, you've got automatic winding, you've got a bi-directional perpetual that gives you the day, date, the month, and yes, the year and the decade at 6 o'clock in white gold, 38.5 millimeters. This is wonderful because it's a Ulysse Nardin in precious metal with a complication that isn't designed for a Kazakh oligarch. Yes, they make watches like this too, beautifully inscribed with an embossed pattern on the dial, a black dial, white metal tandem. This is one of those only watches. If you needed a watch that could do duty in every situation, from your daughter's wedding to a night out with the guys, this is it. Low in profile, discreet, with real horological interest, designed by one of the modern masters. This model bowed in 1999, and frankly, it was perfect at first pass. A timepiece that needs nothing to be improved, charming, perfectly sized and proportioned, with, again, fantastic watchmaking logic contained within its 38.5mm white gold case. And Bengali M is saying it just needs a power reserve. It's about 40 to 42 hours, so you can guesstimate. Okay, so Eddie Landsberg, if you could only have watches from a certain watch group, would it be Swatch or Richemont? Well, considering I own 9 Jaeger LeCoultre timepieces and I'm looking to add a 10th, I think that goes without mentioning. But okay, let's rule out JLC. Let's say I can't own a JLC and I have to pick. I would say, honestly, it would be tough for me to choose between LVMH's Zenith, Swatch's Blancpain, which has an incredible modern catalog, post-1980s, really amazing stuff, including minute repeaters you can pick up for under $40,000. And then at Richemont, I love Lange. I mean, I love Lange like I can't describe. The way I love JLC, I also love Lange. I got started with JLC first, so the die was cast, but if I were ever to finish my JLC roadmap, I would start collecting a Lange Sohne, and actually, that's a great segue to a piece that they've offered since 2001. Lange watches in yellow gold just look right. Because of their traditional styles, case design, and modest proportions, a Lange in yellow gold, like the Saxonia Langematik, is a special piece. Now, the watch is special for 2 reasons. First, you're not going to see many micro-rotor automatics that look like this. Yes, that's a gold rotor with a platinum winding mass, 21 karat gold, hand engraved to make the rotor, and then a platinum PT950 mass for ultra efficient 3/4 style micro rotor winding action. Note the hand engraved balance cock, each one freehand engraved. Note the German silver, nickel, copper, zinc, golden alloy that comprises this movement. This is the L9221. It's known as the Saxomat caliber. It's a perpetual calendar, and as you can see, as you adjust it using the Grande date or outsized date adjuster, everything is as crisp as you would expect on a column wheel chronograph. Note the alpha hands at center, so delicate, so sporty, and so handsome with those luminous inserts. You can actually read this watch in the dark, not the calendar, but the time. It also features a unique take on hacking seconds. As you can see, the seconds subdial at 6 o'clock has a 0 reset. So with time periods as large as 122 years measured by the moon phase, the watch nevertheless can be set, watch the reset at 6 o'clock, it can be set to the second using the 0 reset stop seconds feature. That's why I love Lange. No detail overlooked. You get hand engraving on every movement they sell you, beautiful finishing in a style that is so glasuta. This is not Geneva finishing, and I can prove it too, because I have a micro rotor perpetual calendar from Patek Philippe right next to it. Right here, you have caliber 922, the Saxomat, and right here, you have the caliber 240 QP LU, so it's a perpetual calendar with a moon phase. You can see the difference. This is unfinished German silver movement. This is rhodium-plated brass. This is the Saxon tradition, which is rooted in pocket watches. This is the Patek Philippe aesthetic, which is rooted in the Geneva hallmark standards, even though this one is Patek Philippe seal. Both micro-rotor, both perpetual calendar, both from the truly great houses. But personally, if I were to pick just one for myself, it would be this. So you ask me if I have to choose between one of the major groups and only one brand therein, Lange. And this beautiful 38.5mm Langematik Perpetual with a gorgeous sort of champagne dial base is one of the reasons why I just love the brand. The dial is silver, the moon phase disc is gold. This watch, in my opinion, is the platinum standard. Okay, let's pick a winner. Okay, by the way, I'm giving away free stuff, guys. If you're just joining us and you've never done this before, here's the drill. You send me your name, your mailing address, and your phone number to tim@thewatchbox.com, and I will pick randomly from my many accumulated emails a winner of the stuff on the table. Okay, so we just talked about major groups, and I'm picking a winner, our next winner of the night. Okay, Cameron P. from Enid, Oklahoma. Is that where Vance Air Force Base is? I want to say that when I was in the Navy, we'd send some of our guys, the unlucky ones, to go train with the Air Force at Vance. And I want to say it was in Enid, Oklahoma. Well, out on the range, since we're speaking of major groups, I'm giving you a Tag Heuer LVMH. So Tag Heuer commemorative cap. You can see it's got the handsome Tag Heuer script in green, white, and red with a beautifully deluxe ball cap style. You can see red underlay, black dominant, and a beautifully polished Tag Heuer adjustment mechanism on the back. Don't crack under pressure like our trainees at Vance Air Force Base, the toughest of the tough. Thank you so much, Cameron. You're getting a free Tag Heuer hat. All right, guys, remember, that's your name, your mailing address, and your phone number. I can't email you your prize, so you guys who only sent me the email, you're going to have to do it again. We're giving away gifts tonight. All right, jumping along, we just talked about the difference between Patek and Lange, but let me be honest, Patek deserves someone to play its advocate, because I don't mean to put them down by comparison to a brand I love personally. Let me objectively tell you what's great about Patek Philippe. Uncompromising style and dedication to tradition. Now, we first saw this hobnail bezel straight lug style in the early 1970s from Patek Philippe. I want to say it was the 3520 that debuted this style, and it's been the unconventional Calatrava look along with the traditional blended lug. Now, this watch is the 5139G. The 5139 is a perpetual calendar, micro rotor automatic that bowed at Basel World 2008. The watch is 38 millimeters round by 9 millimeters slim. So you see in profile, it really stands low on the wrist. This is a perfect dress watch with a beautiful lacquered black dial. As you can see, the dial is rich and glossy, almost like enamel. Flawless black lacquer for depth and gleam. You can also see that the indices are applied and polished white gold with matching white gold foil or leaf style hands. This is a perpetual calendar that's beautifully balanced bilaterally with a very discreet moon phase, crescent style at 6 o'clock. This is a watch that wears well with anything, and because you can see this is the Patek Philippe seal, what that means is that this model was made post mid-2009. Why do you want that? Well, post-2006, you know that Patek Philippe white gold became gray gold, which is to say it's a homogeneous alloy, so if you scratch it, it's not plated like conventional white gold. There's just more white metal underneath. This watch, I would say, has a gravitas that belies its compact proportions and its low profile. This is classical Patek Philippe watchmaking. Relatively small, relatively discreet, beautifully executed to the highest standards of Geneva watchmaking. It's not worse than the Lange. It's a different standard. Everything from the finish of the bridges to the constitution of the materials, brass with rhodium plate, right down to the style of the micro rotor. This is Patek Philippe. You either love the brand or you don't. It's polarizing, and that's okay. Terry Stern is all right with being the love-hate brand because those that love are blood brothers to Patek Philippe and its cadre of believers. You will never be disappointed with the quality that you get from Patek. Sebastian saying, in platinum, that would be perfect. Ryan H. saying he's not crazy about Patek or Lange. He likes Rolex. Or no, like Rolex, he says, he finds them too conservative. Okay, you want to do something that's a little bit nutty, that's not conservative in the least? Let's find something that is not conservative. In fact, let's go back home for a minute to one of my personal favorites, with Jaeger LeCoultre. Now, normally I like to finish big, but we've got more Patek on the table tonight, and I've got some watches that, quite frankly, can speak for themselves, if you catch my drift. This watch, however, not a chiming timepiece, nevertheless, the most complicated reverso ever created, anything but conservative. This is the Jaeger LeCoultre Reverso Grande Complication à Triptyque, a watch that came out in 2006 for the 75th anniversary of the Reverso. You can see on the back a zodiac calendar, sidereal time with the star chart, a 24-hour hand. You can see sunrise and sunset and an equation of time, and it has a perpetual calendar. That's right, the watch has three 1, 2, 3 dials. The watch is also one of only 75 pieces made in platinum. It weighs close to a pound. You can see the perpetual calendar system too is JLC's own. It's not the Kurt Claus system from IWC. So you may wonder, with the movement in this case and the perpetual calendar actually stored in the case back, how does it change over the date? Well, there's actually a sort of jump hour actuator that pops out of the case around midnight that indexes a rocker switch. There's actually a lever on the back of the case internally that indexes and actuates and steps the perpetual calendar once every 24 hours, which is why at midnight the watch needs to be closed or it will not advance the perpetual. But there's more, much more. A watch with 19 functions deserves a tourbillon, and not just any tourbillon. I wish I could get you really, really close because it uses JLC's patented and hyper-exotic ellipse isometer escapement design. So it has an unconventional escapement architecture underneath that tourbillon cage, but the escapement itself is also unlubricated diamond-coated silicon, one of the very, very few times Jaeger LeCoultre has used a synthetic escapement. This is completely unique to this watch. It also features a quantized power reserve. It jumps from 0 to 1 to 2 and from 2 to 1 to 0. It doesn't sweep continuously, it jumps. And naturally, a 24-hour indicator with the danger zone so you know when not to set the perpetual calendar system. Now there's more. Of course there's more, because the watch is so big that the case needs to be locked in place, which is why it has a case lock. Now you can see the case lock in its position outermost locks this huge platinum carapace in place. Now you slide it in, it unlocks. Now this is also found on the Gyro Tourbillon 2 of 2008 and the Repetition Minute à Redoux, the minute repeater, both of which are so huge that the case has to be physically locked in place. It's everything you imagine it is, from its size to its scale to its finish to its detailing to the sensation of manually winding it. This is so over the top. I don't even know where to start. But rest assured, if you are the next customer for this watch, you are going to have to be cool with the star chart being set for the latitude of Hong Kong. Because as you can see on the flank, this watch, originally designed for a customer in Hong Kong, is customized so that the star chart, as well as the equation of sunrise and sunset, are set for Hong Kong. Does that mean you're stuck? No. When it goes back for a service, JLC will change it over. But full disclosure, I want you to know what you're in for. And with star charts and sunset, sunrise, that's geographically proximate. I almost feel bad about putting my fingerprints all over that watch. And this is the caliber 175. If you want to open a new window and Google Jaeger LeCoultre caliber 175, you can get full decased details of what that movement actually looks like. That is the most complicated Reverso ever made. Okay, we got a comment from TD Garage. Tim put it on. Well, it just so happens to be sized down to my wrist, which is a complete coincidence. I was definitely not wearing this around the office earlier today. I would never do a thing like that. Okay, you want to see it on my wrist? The watch does pull a little bit of a magic trick, a vanishing act. I don't know how they did it, but it's probably the fact that the back of the case is sculpted. The back of the case is actually sculpted in a profile we wouldn't see on the mainstream Reversos till 2016. You can see it on my wrist. It's a big old block of platinum, but somehow, and you can see what I mean about the back of the case being sculpted, it actually arcs across the wrist. Somehow it does fit. So if you're like me and you've got not so much a tree trunk forearm as a sapling forearm, make no mistake, this thing does fit, and it fits securely. And that's not on the short strap. You can get a short strap option from JLC, and frankly, if you buy the watch from us for $245,000, we will throw in a free strap. But this is a watch that you can actually wear. You can absolutely pull this thing off. You can also put it on. But aesthetically, you'll have no trouble looking like the watch belongs on your wrist, even though, quite frankly, this much precious metal belongs in Fort Knox. That thing is just a ton of fun. JLC does a good job of making big watches fit compact. Okay, Fjord Perfect saying you can own it for $245,000 US. That's a bargain, because when that thing was new in 2006, it was the equivalent of, in today's money, $400,000 US. So no, I wouldn't consider it to be affordable, but relatively speaking, in a world where you'll pay more than retail for a steel Patek Philippe Nautilus with a movement that's been around for over 10 years, at least you're getting what you pay for with that thing in terms of complication, craft arts, and the sheer it factor. Okay. Budget watch guy, is that an Invicta? No, and in fact, if you put this on a pile of Invictas, it would compress them to the size of a Datejust. That's how beefy that watch is. All right, Edward Ledden, Tim, do you ship to Sweden? I sure do. We love to do business with our friends from Europe. I know a lot of you guys tune into the broadcasts, and I appreciate it. All right, so we're getting towards the end of the broadcast tonight, and I want to highlight something that's a great match for a smaller wrist. If you're into the Portuguese and you're into the Portuguese Perpetual, you know that most of them are over 44 millimeters, about 44.2. But from 2006 to 2009, a brief window between the first and the third Portuguese Perpetual calendars, this watch, the 5022, was made at 42 millimeters, which means it wears well on a smaller wrist. And in fact, I'll give you a quick wrist shot just so you can see. This is a watch that you can wear on a small wrist, feel good about it, and look properly proportioned. 42 millimeters, that's on a 16 centimeter wrist. It doesn't look ungainly. With the Portuguese, big is the style. You just don't want it to be too big. And this short-lived model at 42 millimeters is that. You know what else is cool about this watch? It's a platinum limited series of 250 pieces, which means exclusivity is guaranteed. Now let me throw something else out there. This is a special one because it is quite literally #1, serial #1 of the 250. You can see this is a special piece for a connoisseur of IWC, or maybe a guy who's got a Jonesin thing for having #1 of limited series. Also note the degree of finishing on the case flank. Look at the contrast between the satin case band and the polish. Look at the concave bezel that pairs the visual mass. And then look at that gorgeous, lightly frosted opaline dial, beautifully balanced in cruciform fashion. You've got the power reserve, you've got the millennium, you've got the century, the decade, the year, day, date, month, all of that with constant seconds. This is a handsome watch for the Portuguese purist. And on the back, you've got IWC's caliber 51610. Now this is special because this is the 18,000 vibration model. From 2006 to 2007, they made this slow beat version with the 7-day power reserve. From 2008 to 2009, they made the fast beat 21,600. I prefer the aesthetic of the slow beat. It's more pleasing to the eye. It's easier to grasp visually. And yes, it gives you all the functionality of the later movement, just with a slower, statelier balanced beat. It's a charming thing to look at and to hear against the ear. And yes, it comes with a full clasp with the older style IWC initials in the clasp. Very hefty. This thing all in platinum is an absolute dream. And again, if you're not into the 44 millimeter Portuguese Perpetual, you just can't quite wear it nice. You just can't quite wear it right. And the Pilot's Perpetuals are just far beyond you or too outlandish. This is a great choice. And it has that same sequentially programmed Kurt Claus coordinated Perpetual calendar module. Okay, so what happens to the IWC at the end of the year 9999? I'm glad you asked that. Actually, this IWC features adjustments so you can set it to the 22nd and 23rd century using the slide that's inside it, and then you actually get a second slide that comes in the kit that's sealed in a tube with wax that allows you to adjust to the 24th century. So you actually get the spare part so you can bump to the 24th century with this watch, ready and waiting, future-proofed, courtesy of the watchmakers at IWC. Did I mention that IWC is the German part of Switzerland? Over-engineered much? Yeah, a little bit. Planned to a fault, and we love them for it. Okay. Tim, if you had to choose Lange or Journe, this is from Mike K, without hesitation, Lange. I love the brand for what it is, for what it's done, for having one uniform standard of finish, not several levels. Journe is a wonderful, sometimes even avant-garde brand that prides itself on innovation, but they're not always the most exquisitely finished movements in the space or in the price range. They don't always appeal to me aesthetically. FP Journe is a guy who is personally polarizing, and I'm not sure I buy into everything that FP Journe is personally. As a professional, I respect him like no one else. Personally, he's not the kind of guy I would want to go out and party with. Whereas Tony de Haas from Lange, their head of watchmaking, yeah, I would go out and party with him. He's a professional drummer and a cool dude. And there's a huge Lange manufacturer that's kept the tradition alive of Saxon watchmaking and established most of the norms, not just for the brand, but a lot of what we consider glasuta watch finishing and style today came from Lange, a trendsetter always at the head of engineering, of style, of materials, of finish. And fun folks, I buy into everything the brand is, and I prefer it over Journe. Again, no disrespect to FP Journe or his brand, but Lange is where I make my bed. Okay. Question, pocket watches or wrist watches? Wrist watches. I've thought of buying a JLC Grande Complication pocket watch from the 19th century. Frankly, it's just not my style. I'm not the kind of guy to walk around smoking pipe tobacco and wearing a monocle. I mean, you can imagine, it's bad enough that the glasses are on my head. Could you imagine if it was a monocle? Pipe tobacco, pocket watches, monocles, not for me. I'm punk, but I'm not steampunk. All right, so let's bring it to a crescendo for the night. Guys, I promised you Grande Complications. I've delivered part of the way, but I haven't fully signed off. The show's not over until a Patek Philippe Grande Complication says it's over. And from 1993 to 2011, the Patek Philippe 5016 defined the Grande Complication wristwatch. 36.5 millimeters in white gold. This is the 5016G. 200 pieces from 93 to 2011. It's a tourbillon. It's a minute repeater. It's a perpetual calendar retrograde. And yes, I've set it to 1259. So the longest possible run you can get from a minute repeater, and here it comes. How cool was that? Plus I did the little minute repeater dance. Now yes, it's a calendar watch, so it fits with tonight's theme, but the important thing here is that it's pretty much an everything watch. Everything you've ever wanted in a watch, from that gorgeous third wheel that takes 10 plus hours to finish by itself and is executed in 14 karat gold, to the black polished repeater hammers, to the beautiful filigree style Calatrava cross atop the governor, and a tourbillon bridge, all of black polish. This is as good as it gets. There really is no way to improve this, short of perhaps a rose gold case and a black dial. Now you want to see it on the wrist? This is the kind of watch you could wear full-time as your only timepiece, and no one would ever comment on it, ask you if it's real, ask how much money it cost. The ultimate in stealth wealth and low-profile complication. This is the best for those who, quite frankly, have already experienced the rest and rejected it. This is the one Patek you would ever want to own or need to own. This is the one watch you would ever need to own. Beautiful, rare, discreet, a connoisseur's piece, and a Patek Philippe for those who perhaps don't warm up to the brand. It's hard not to see the magic in this thing. And if you can't see the magic, to hear the magic. This 5016 is a dream watch, perfect in every way. You can see why a 5016 lit up the Only Watch auction back in 2015. A dream watch in any era, in any company. There's a reason that this one, I believe we're asking just under $600,000 for it, less than it sold for new, and in my opinion, worth the price of admission. Okay, so what could possibly top that, right? Well, it takes one to beat one sometimes, and in the case of Patek Philippe, that's especially true. Now, You've heard standard gongs, but have you heard cathedral gongs? The Patek Philippe 5074 debuted in 2002, and in 2005 a rose gold model launched. This is important because Terry Stern has personally opined, Terry Stern, the owner of Patek Philippe, has opined that rose gold repeaters are the most sonorous. They have the most beautiful, musical, mellifluous tone, and though not the loudest, they are the most achingly gorgeous to the ear. But you add cathedral gongs, in which the gong circles the case 1.5 to 2 times, and all of a sudden you gain back what you lose in volume with the rose gold and its density. So what we have here is the 5074 Cathedral Gong Grande Complication minute repeater. And I'm going to see if I can set it perfectly to 1259. This one's an automatic, so it's already started beating away. All right. That thing is epic. Looks as good as it sounds. For me, I'm mostly a dark dial, white metal kind of guy, but when you have rose gold and a black dial, that absolutely slays me. And why don't we sign off by letting you see what this looks like too. This is what it looks like when it's actually in action. All right, let's pick some winners. Tom Hung, hands down, the one to own. Okay, this thing is gorgeous. Honestly, if you rip my eyes out, it would be just as gorgeous. Let's pick some winners. You guys have been sending me your name, your mailing address, and your phone number so I can send you free swag. Okay, Scott Simmons from Sunrise, you've just won a hat worthy of the Sunshine State, a citrus orange Audemars Piguet ball cap. Beautifully made. You can see even the buckle on the reverse side is satin finished and says AP. Congratulations, man. All right. We got a friend from Hawaii, watch lover from Hawaii. Kyle, congratulations. I'm giving you our second Patek Philippe tie. Silk, hand-stitched, rich. This is like cream in the hands. It caresses your skin as you tie your Windsor knot. This thing is almost so sensual it should be illicit. This thing should have a minimum age requirement of 18. A happy ending for you and for Watches Live. This is our Patek Philippe tie, and I think Terry Stern just excommunicated me for saying that. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us for Watches Live. Remember, this is Watchbox Reviews. Watchbox Studios is always posting new content. Subscribe if you see what you like. For tonight, I'm Tim. They're the watches. They're the amigos. This is Watchbox Reviews, and thank you, everyone, for joining me and logging on.